A town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN, home of the Philadelphia 76ers.
Simmons pokes it away, steals it, sidesteps him and jams a two-hand throwdown.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Monday edition of Game Night here on 97.3 ESPN. We are live in the Matt Black Kia Studios on 97.3 ESPN FM. The 97.3 ESPN mobile app is powered by First Bank of Sea City. And of course, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show. Hello to all of you out there right here on 97.3 ESPN. Just follow 97.3 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Got a lot to get to. Obviously, we will touch on the Julio Jones news. I mean, Julio Jones is going on national TV saying that he's out of Atlanta. So we'll touch on that. Also, the Sixers won last night, game one of their series. Maybe a little closer than some people would have hoped or liked. What do we take away from the game? Tom Moore, longtime sports columnist for the Bucks County Courier Times, covered the Sixers for 2 decades. He was the game. We'll get into what happened Sunday afternoon in Philadelphia with him as well. And as always, we take your feedback. 609-403-0973 if you're listening on 97.3 ESPN FM. If you're watching the show on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you can comment on the stream as you watch the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, if you're listening on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City, you can comment at 609-403-0973 as well. But I'm going to get to the Julio Jones stuff, and I know people have a lot of thoughts about that. Before we get to that, I got to make a couple points about the Sixers game last night. Number one, yesterday afternoon, the Sixers game. I don't think we can undersell or underplay or overlook the reality that was, I heard multiple times in recent weeks about how Ben Simmons this, Tobias Harris that, Doc Rivers this, fill in the blank. Everyone had an issue with everybody. And the closer and closer we got to the game, the more that those people got louder and louder. And finally, we had a game where we actually saw something specific. And that something specific was Tobias Harris. I know because people love to complain and nitpick, and they have nothing good to say about anything kind of people out there. People are going to complain about Ben Simmons going 0 for 6 from the free throw line, which in any reality is unacceptable if you are a professional basketball player. You can't go 0 for 6 from the foul line. It's completely unacceptable. I don't care what the excuse is. I don't care what the reason is. It's horrible. But I am not going to sit here and spend my energy on that. I am going to spend my energy on talking about a guy that I have been pounding the table for a long time now. Tobias Harris arguably had the biggest game of his life in a postseason game in which he had to help carry this team for stretches offensively. It wasn't just the 37 points that was impressive. It was the fact this is another game. And I've told you guys this before. This is now, if you combine regular season and postseason, this is now the 30th game that the Sixers have won when Tobias Harris has gotten at least 20 points and at least 6 rebounds. What you're basically telling me is that when Tobias Harris gets at least 20 and 6, the Sixers have a winning percentage of above 70%. If that's not insane, how about the fact that Tobias Harris shot over 50% from the field yesterday afternoon, 40% from 3, 5 for 5 from the foul line. Oh, and by the way, he had 2 steals. For those people who don't believe Tobias Harris doesn't play defense. Tobias Harris had a massive game yesterday. And I don't think we give him enough credit. We don't give him enough credit that this guy came to Philadelphia, had to find his way on a team that initially had Embiid, Simmons, and Butler, and he was the 4th option. Then Butler moves on. He's asked to become the 3rd option in an offense that doesn't amplify or complement his skill set. He endures that. He busts his tail in the bubble. He literally and figuratively was running himself into the ground because he was trying to be a leader on a team without much veteran leadership. If you watched any of the player vlogs while they're in the bubble, it was very clear that Tobias Harris was filling a void that was vacated by a lot of people who should have been stepping up when he stepped up for this organization and this team in terms of keeping the guys focused on the task at hand while also balancing all the off-the-court stuff we were dealing with in the year 2020. Now Doc Rivers comes in, puts Tobias Harris in a position to be successful. And in the first playoff game, he has to be the one to bridge the gap when Joel Embiid has to leave due to foul trouble, and Ben Simmons is looking to set up Curry and Green and other shooters around him. Tobias said, I'm going to fill the gap. I'm going to be the man. And I'm going to tell all the people who didn't think I could be the man, watch out. I'm dangerous. And I don't think we give Tobias Harris enough credit for that. This guy is 28 years old. He will turn 29 July 15th. He is still in the prime of his basketball life. I think it's time that people show him a little more respect because they don't win that game without him yesterday, without him keeping them in it while the rest of the team was playing poorly. And I mean, really, really poorly. It wasn't bad enough that Embiid got out, goes out with foul trouble. They couldn't hit a 3 for a while. They were 0 for 11, I believe it was at one point, was the stat I saw on the screen. It was just so aggravating to watch them for stretch on offense. But Tobias Harris was the guy who stepped up. Now, he can't be the guy who steps up for you every night, not because I don't think he could do it, but because of the fact that, guess what? Joel Embiid is not going to play that poorly every day of the week. And if Ben Simmons ever goes 0 for 6 from the foul line again, I think there's going to be some people who are going to really give it to him. And it's not going to be fans on Twitter and social media. It's going to be his teammates. Because Ben Simmons has a little bit more personal pride than that. And by the way, that 3 he chucked up to end the shot clock, that was bad as well. I think he was embarrassed by that. Because you saw his body language. He was very unhappy with himself. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Sixers Game 2 coming up on Wednesday night. Here are all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN. Tom McGinnis on the call here on your home in South Jersey for Sixers basketball, 97.3 ESPN. The Julio Jones news. I did want to get to this because I feel like the world is just churning today because of this. And I got to say, I don't think it was a stage job. I don't think it was a setup. I don't think it was a entrapment of Shannon Sharpe of Julio Jones on national television. I think Julio was just speaking his mind, and Shannon Sharpe, may or may not have had, predisposed information that he would be interested in having that conversation. Whether he did or not, I don't really care. What I do care about is what he said. What he said was, I'm out of here. I think it's very clear that the Julio Jones Falcons relationship is pretty much at the end. And when you look at them drafting Kyle Pitts. You could argue that Kyle Pitts can be the Julio Jones of that offense moving forward. Big, freak athlete, can cross the middle, can do the go route better than you expect him to, can be a possession receiver, can do whatever you need him to do. He just happens to be a guy who can play tight end as well as pretty much every offensive weapon slot on an offense. So when I look at Julio Jones wanting to be traded, it makes sense. I don't think he said anything extreme. As to where he would go, I think it really depends on what the Falcons are looking for. There's a lot of conjecture that Atlanta is going to ask for a first-round pick. Now, whether they get a first-round pick or not is debatable because the teams that need Julio Jones, some of them might be willing to give up first-round picks, some of them are not. The first two teams that come to my mind when it comes to Julio Jones are the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks, not the Philadelphia Eagles, because those are two teams that, let's be realistic, they need a receiver who is going to be of high caliber. So I understand that for us in our area, a lot of people are looking at teams like the Eagles. Maybe even some Jet fans are like, please send Julio our way. Can we get on this action? But I think that a team that is desperate is going to get Julio. The best offer is not going to get Julio. It's the most desperate offer and the team that is the most persistent. Remember a few years ago when Elton Brand said he was calling the Timberwolves every single day, asking about Jimmy Butler for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then finally, the Timberwolves capitulated and said, fine, you want Jimmy Butler? What kind of deal can you offer me? I think that's the team that's going to get Julio Jones. It's not going to be the team with the best quote-unquote offer. So, listen, I'm seeing a lot of different people out there talk about, I see, for example, Eagles fans are saying Zach Ertz. Other Eagle fans are saying first-round pick. I get it. And I'll get the way you guys think in a little bit, but I think that you got to remember that Atlanta is not in a position to have to trade him as soon as you may want him to. Because, number one, they have all the power in the situation. Julio can't hold out and just not get paid, all right? He still has guaranteed money on his contract that he wants to take. That's some serious money, $15 million guaranteed this year. And think about it this way. If you trade him after June 1st, it's a savings of, what is that? Oh, the full $15 million guaranteed. You're saving $15 million on your cap if you trade him after June 1st. If you trade him before June 1st, it's a cap hit of $23 million for the Falcons, according to overthecap.com. So this is not going to happen until after June 1st. So just remember, it's May 24th. Whatever great deal you came up with, wait the system out. Let this play out. Let the deals come in. Let the teams talk. Julio Jones is 32 years old. He's got $15.3 million on the cap. I don't know if the Eagles can financially absorb that kind of contract, but I think it's worth having a conversation about. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, we will get to all of your thoughts and comments a little bit later in the hour, as we always do each and every night. We got a bunch of messages over on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I'll get to all of you guys. Alexis, Steve, Jeff Bone, and Pookie, as well as a text board 609-403-0973 a little bit later this hour. Of course, Game Night being brought to you by Matt Black Kia. Matt Black Kia wants to get you approved today. Matt Black Kia on the Black Horse Pike at Carver Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. Coming up next, sports columnist for the Bucks County Courier Times, longtime Sixers guy who's covered the team for 2 decades. Tom Moore joins us to talk about the Sixers Game 1 win. What does it mean? What are his big takeaways from the game? That is next, right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show. Hello, everybody. Just follow 97.3 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
It's Sixers playoff basketball Wednesday night on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McInnes, calling all the exciting Sixers playoff action.
Harris has got it all tucking here in this one. Timeout, Washington.
It's Sixers Wizards Game 2 Wednesday night. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers playoff basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN FM.
On some models excludes Corvette with GM financing. Excludes prior sale. See dealer for details.
Many car dealers all around the area are having trouble getting inventory, so they're jacking up prices big time. But at Bennett Chevy, we haven't changed a thing. Why would we? You said you love our GM supplier employee pricing. You pay what our supplier employees pay, not a penny more. Bennett also gives you all the rebates, which can add up to a whopping 25% off MSRP. Plus, Bennett's got available 0% financing that'll save you thousands more. Looking for used? Good news. Bennett's still paying a minimum $7,000 for any trade you bring us, regardless of condition or miles. Any old Heath is worth a minimum $7,000 towards any pre-owned in stock. And our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend, so there's no pressure ever. And Bennett Chevy is now an authorized lease return center for all brands. So now more than ever, there's just no beating Bennett. Find new roads at Bennett Chevrolet, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Are you one of the millions of Americans who experience occasional bloating, gas, or abdominal discomfort?
Attention prop swappers. Home Run Heaven has begun as it's officially baseball season on PropSwap, where you can find the best odds in the world on the fighting Phils and all your favorite teams. Acquire future World Series champion tickets today while the odds are sky high, and you can even sell them on PropSwap next month for profit when the odds drop. You could turn $100 into $400 quick without ever even touching the ticket. So download the PropSwap app today and get started this baseball season. PropSwap, where America buys and sells sports bets.
Dorothy Roofing, it's a heart and a brain thing. Call 1-877-97-KEVIN. Wizard quality comes with DorothyRoofing.com.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. As always, we will get to your thoughts and comments a little bit later this hour. Keep them coming. 609-403-0973 is the text board. You're listening on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you can comment on the stream. We'll get to all of your comments about 20 minutes from now. But joining us right now on the Boardwalk kind of hotline, sports columnist for the Bucks County Courier Times, has covered the Sixers for many years now. Tom Moore joins us live here on 97.3 ESPN. Tom, how you doing today?
All right. How are you doing, Josh?
Doing pretty good. So, big win for the Sixers on Sunday, but I want to start with what you wrote about, which is Tobias Harris. I just feel like this guy doesn't get the credit he deserves. Every time this team needed him to step up this year, he stepped up. He was scoring yesterday when nobody else was really giving them that much, and he's done it multiple times this year where he has filled the void when someone had to step up for this team.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sunday, Embiid only played 10 and a half minutes in the first half because he picked up 2 quick fouls in the first quarter and the third foul in the second quarter. So without those 27, first half points from Harris, they would have been in big, big trouble. I thought both he and his teammates and Doc Rivers really did a good job of taking advantage with Washington starting 3 guards. They go real small. So he was getting guards on him and he was posting up, and scoring in mid-range, scoring, at the rim. That was, he doesn't have a lot of playoff experience. In his previous 12 playoff games, he only had 1 20-point game, and that was the closeout game that they lost Game 4 to Boston last year in the bubble. So, there isn't a whole lot of, postseason, numbers to work with. But he did have a very good regular season, probably his second best year. And they're going to need him. They really are, as that second consistent scorer. And then they need to figure out, can Seth Curry be the third guy one night? Can Shake Milton another night? George Hill, I thought, played really well for him yesterday and was on the court at the end of the game. This is why they got him, because he's reliable. He can guard multiple positions. He can handle the ball. He can play off the ball. He's played 148 playoff games, so nothing surprises him. But yeah, Harris was the star of the game yesterday. I don't think there's any question about that.
A lot of people talk about this, and you wrote about it yourself, about how the impact that Doc Rivers has had on Tobias, and about the fact that, Doc has really put him in a position. If you could you tell that story again about what Doc told him when he was talking to him about what he was doing under Brett Brown and what he was going to do with him?
Sure. Yeah. I talked to Doc maybe 3 months ago in a one-on-one interview, and he talked about he was watching film of Tobias last year, and he noticed he was going right a lot, and he Doc believes that Harris prefers to go left. So he called up Tobias, said, "What's the deal? Which way do you prefer?" And Tobias said, "I can go either way." And Doc said, "Baloney," except he didn't say baloney. He said another word. Right. And he said, and then Tobias said, "Well, you think I prefer to go left." And Doc said, "I know you prefer to go left." So if you notice, they have him on the right side a lot. So he can, if he's going to the middle, he uses his left hand. The fact that also that he didn't speak up and say, "Look, I'd like to go left. Why can't you run more sets for me going to the left?" Which I think, Harris should have done. And maybe he didn't want to ruffle feathers, but he had been there part of the previous season with Butler and Redick and all that. But last year, that certainly would have helped. And the coaches should have realized that he prefers to go left. If they looked at him with the Clippers when he did so well with Doc Rivers before the trade a little over 2 years ago here, he and I didn't realize it, but I don't watch it as closely, how much he prefers going left. So that's a little thing, but it's really not a little thing.
Tom Moore joining us here on the Boardwalk at a Hotline here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, at Tom Moore Philly on Twitter. You can check out his latest on Tobias Harris and the Sixers win over there on Twitter, at Tom Moore Philly on Twitter. Tom, the other aspects of the game yesterday was the Sixers, they were really, really cold from three. So they had to get really creative at times to generate offenses at different stretches of the game. What did you think about how Doc Rivers used his bench rotations in those situations?
Yeah, it was interesting because if he went 10 deep, but in the first half, he played Hill, Milton, Korkmaz, Thibault, and Dwight Howard. So Mike Scott did not play. He went really small with his second group. But then in the second half, he used Maxey. Maxey came in at the end of the first half, if you remember, when Curry got hurt a little bit, went to the locker room. He put him in. He had a 3-point play. The crowd loved it. So he plugged Maxey in for Korkmaz's minutes. The bench really struggled in the first half. And that's why I thought Hill had 7 points in the first half, including a 3-pointer. And Harris was the main guy, but I thought Hill off the bench really had a good feel for when they needed him to score and when they needed him to distribute. And then in the second half, the bench was a little bit better. He only used all 5 bench guys together, not very long, which I was really surprised. I thought he might only go 9 deep. I didn't think maybe Korkmaz would play. And I thought maybe that Harris and Simmons would share the 4 position, but he went really small, as I said. Maybe he'll tighten it up. I don't know. Korkmaz missed all 3 of his shots. He was 0 for 10 in the playoffs last year too, so I'm not sure if he's going to get another look. People say, well, you can experiment. It's only the Wizards, but you don't want to lose game 2 and go down to Washington. And certainly the Sixers could win at least one game in Washington. I'm not saying that, but you really want to win both these games. Put a lot of pressure on Washington to have to win 4 out of 5 to win the series. Maybe in Washington game 3 or something, maybe you experiment a little bit, but I think it's a little early to do that. I think he played it fairly straight, but I could see him tighten up that bench and maybe maybe only going 9 deep.
Some people have been wondering about his usage of Matisse Thybulle. He obviously only played 14 minutes, 0 for 2 from the field. Those were both 3-pointers. What do you think about Doc's plans for Thybulle? Because people believe, this is not my personal belief. I hear a lot of people saying when you face certain teams, like let's say the Nets, Thybulle might have to get more playing time defensively. What do you think?
I mean, theoretically, I like the idea, but you have to look at it. If you have Ben Simmons and Thybulle on the court, you can argue you're essentially 3-on-5 in the half-court offense, and that's as good as you are at the other end. That's why, and I think he's wary of that. I mean, they played together a little bit yesterday, but I think you have to watch that. He really needs to be an offensive, not a force, but just a threat. He doesn't really drive the ball to the basket. He shoots standstill threes and is not shooting very well, on them, as good a defender as he is. And the fact that the Wizards have 2 really good wings, in Beal and Westbrook, or guards, whatever you want to call them. It's a balancing act. Now, obviously, at the end of games, he'll be on the court for defensive possessions. At least if you go defense, offense, then you put in Danny Green or George Hill on offense, or whatever you do, or Curry, depending on the circumstances. But it's kind of it's a fine line. You have to watch it, because if, as I said, too much, in the half court. I mean, Ben Simmons was, unbelievable at the defensive end. The job he did on Beal. 15 rebounds, 15 assists, only 2 turnovers, just unbelievable. Plus 18, the only Sixer with a better plus minus was Embiid with plus 20, but then he misses all 6 of his free throws and he only scores 6 points. So on one hand, he was incredible and fantastic, but it's all part of the whole package, and that plays into here. I mean, if Rivers had a guy in that spot who he could count on to score, I think you could play Thybulle more, but you really have to be cognizant of that.
Speaking of Ben Simmons, what do we make of him at this point, Tom? You've watched a lot of basketball. You covered the Sixers for a long time. I mean, obviously going 0 for 6 from the free throw line as a professional basketball player is unacceptable. I mean, I remember when I was younger, I played high school basketball, and if you went 1 for 6 from the foul line, you were running sprints. So it's like, what do we do with Ben Simmons at this point? Because we, like you mentioned, amazing on the defensive end, 15 assists. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. But I mean, what do you do with him when he has that kind of game? It's almost like a catch-22 in how you judge him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at this point it's all part of the package. How terrific he is at the defensive end, and Beal's numbers. Beal was like 1 for 6 with 4 turnovers when he guarded him, and shot like 70% when he didn't guard him. But then, I mean, going to the line 3 times and getting 2 free throws each, and you could just tell his body language after he missed the first one. He just was not comfortable, and the free throws may be the reason he's timid and not attacking the rim, because he doesn't want to get fouled. He doesn't want to go to the foul line. So he will shoot, instead of going at the rim, he'll kind of go parallel to the rim and shoot these kind of fading away shots when he's got a guy 7 inches smaller than him. Right. I mean, I'm sure Doc Rivers is encouraging to do it, and they might be able to get through the first 2 rounds here without him doing that. But eventually, whether it's the Nets, the Bucks, the Heat, or whoever in the Eastern Conference Finals, they're going to need him to be more productive at the offensive end, because you just can't afford not to have him in that attack mode, which he can do with his quickness and the way he handles the ball and his size. He really can be a weapon at the offensive end. I think it's just more confidence than anything, really.
Tom Moore joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, sports columnist for the Bucks County Courier Times, at Tom Moore Philly on Twitter. With that being said, you mentioned they might not need him to do it in this round. What is a fair expectation of Simmons, though? Because on one hand, we remember he had that 40-point game at Utah earlier this year, but then we see a game last night. So what is the in between that you believe is a fair expectation of Ben?
Yeah, it almost, Josh, isn't about how many points he scores. I think it's more of sort of his attitude, to attack. He did get a couple a basket or 2 early in the game when he was aggressive, and then he just kind of reverted back to that drive the lane and kick it out, or get 3 feet from the bucket and look for somebody to pass to, which he's very good at, but teams figure that out too. I just, that Utah game, he had 42 and was, going at Gobert. He was driving the lane. He was shooting, baby hook shots inside. And, I don't need him to, and the Sixers don't need him to score that much. It's just, I think he just needs to be a threat. He needs to keep whoever is defending him honest and, help prevent doubles and triple teams on Embiid. And if he doesn't, it's a guarantee it's going to be a double team, on Embiid, which is why they have Green and Curry. I thought Curry had a big second half, and that helps Embiid certainly. But you can't afford that, not have everybody involved in the half court offense.
You mentioned Embiid. What did you think of the Wizards' strategy of throwing about 20 different guys at him and hoping for the best? I felt like it kind of reminded me, not literally, but a little bit of, I remember years ago when Shaq would go out there and teams would have like 3-4 guys. I mean, the Sixers, they had 3-4 guys in that NBA Finals. So what's about the Wizards' strategy against Embiid?
Well, I mean, they don't have anybody Alex Len, Robin Lopez, Daniel Gafford. I mean, they don't have anybody who can really stop him. I mean, he scored 30 points and he only played, he only played like, I don't even know if he played 30 minutes. And he was 12 for 13 from the line. I think he was 26 to 27 from the line against them in the regular season. He just kills them, at the free throw line. The problem is that if you're the Wizards, I'm not sure what else you can do. You double with whoever else is on that side, and you hope that maybe he turns it over, or whoever he swings it to, and they make the next pass and they miss it. But you can't let him just get easy layups and dunks. So if you have to foul him, you foul him. But he's turned in such a good free throw shooter, that it's almost an automatic 2 points each time. So that is a major problem. To me, if the Wizards were going to win the series, I thought Sunday was a good day for them to steal one. With the Sixers starters were off for 9 days. They didn't play in the regular season finale a week ago Sunday. And then Embiid gets in foul trouble. I mean, it was kind of a perfect storm for them to kind of steal one. And they didn't. That the Sixers still won, even though it was close and even though they couldn't put them away late. I would think that game 2 on Wednesday night that the Sixers, would be kind of settled in a little bit better. The rust is off. And I think that, the Wizards, unless Beal comes up with a monster game or something like that, I think they're going to have a tough time, winning that game 2.
A little big picture question for you with Embiid, and that is, I look around the Eastern Conference, I feel like there's really only one team that has a big man. I don't want to say he can give Embiid trouble, but he can at least make Embiid work. And that's Bam Adebayo. I feel like aside from him, I don't feel like there's almost anybody in the Eastern Conference that can really give Embiid too much trouble when Embiid is on the court and doing his thing.
Probably not, at least one-on-one. Adebayo, I guess people remember that last game in the regular season when Adebayo just outplayed him. Whatever that was, the Thursday night, I guess it was,
right,
of the last week, where Adebayo was just had so much more energy and was so much more active, and Embiid, was fairly passive and just wasn't attacking and so on. I don't think that there's that much of a discrepancy. Obviously, if Embiid's one of the top 3 guys in the MVP, race. But yes, I think definitely that he is probably the one guy. I mean, you look at the Nets and the Bucks, and Lopez really isn't a physical, guy with Milwaukee. They're going to have to double team him, and the Nets will be double teaming him, and so on. So yeah, I mean, he's got a chance to have some really big games, some 30+ point games, maybe 40-point games if he plays, 35 minutes or more. So he is the guy that, he's the bread and butter. Harris is the number 2. And as I said, you just need one other guy to me, to really contribute. And the Sixers should be in pretty good shape at the offensive end.
Game 2, Wednesday night, back at the Wells Fargo Center. He is Tom Moore, sports columnist for the Bucks County Courier-Times, at Tom Moore Philly on Twitter. And as all guests, he appeared here on the Boardwalk on the hotline. Tom, great stuff today. I appreciate you jumping on.
All right. Thanks a lot, Josh. You take care.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Game Night being brought to you by my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are finally here, and FanDuel is celebrating by hooking new users up with $100. Bet just $1 on either team in the Heat Bucks series. That game is tonight, by the way, from now until May 30th. And FanDuel will give you $100 in site credit even if your bet doesn't win. That's right. New users can bet $1 on either the Miami Heat or Milwaukee Bucks from now until May 30th. And FanDuel will give you $100 in site credit. And yes, even if your bet doesn't win. Because FanDuel is the number 1 sports book in America. And there's no better way to bet on sports than with their simple-to-use app with easy-to-use, unique, fun bet types, such as same-game parlays and exclusive always-on promotions to let you get more action out of every game day. So just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and sign up with my promo code Hennig to get your hands on $100 for a big-time payday. That's promo code Hennig with FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or to play and present in New Jersey. Site credit is non-withdrawable and expires in 7 days after receipt. First bet only. Offer is non-transferable. Terms and restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We'll get to your thoughts and comments next. We got a bunch of comments on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 973ESPN for all people who are watching on the stream. Also, text board is there as well for all of you listening on 97.3 ESPN FM at 609-403-0973. That's 609-403-0973 is the text board. We hear from you next. We talked Eagles, Julio Jones, Tobias Harris, Sixers, and more. What do you guys think? We'll find out next, right here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. Don't forget, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app is free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City, and you can customize your app alerts right there on the app. Alerts on the Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, Flyers, local high school sports, right there. Customizable app alerts with the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Wake up weekday mornings from 6 to 10 with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin on 97.3 ESPN.
We're back on Tuesday. Market Madness continues, and we'll tell you if LeBron can avoid an upset in round one. Plus, we'll tell you who has the easiest road to the finals. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, Tuesday morning on ESPN Radio.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Models exclude score bet with GM financing. Excludes prior sale. See dealer for details.
Many car dealers all around the area are having trouble getting inventory, so they're jacking up prices big time. But at Bennett Chevy, we haven't changed a thing. Why would we? You said you love our GM supplier employee pricing. You pay what our supplier employees pay, not a penny more. Bennett also gives you all the rebates, which can add up to a whopping 25% off MSRP. Plus, Bennett's got available 0% financing that'll save you thousands more. Looking for used? Good news. Bennett's still paying a minimum $7,000 for any trade you bring us, regardless of condition or miles. Any old Heath is worth a minimum $7,000 towards any pre-owned in stock. And our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend, so there's no pressure ever. And Bennett Chevy is now an authorized lease return center for all brands. So now more than ever, there's just no beating Bennett. Find new roads at Bennett Chevrolet, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
On 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Glad to have you all on board the show today. Of course, text board is open at 609-403-0973. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show. Sports Bash with Mike Gill. Yours truly, Josh Hennig, here on Game Night, Monday through Friday, right here on 97.3 ESPN, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. As promised, I always like to get to your guys' comments before we get out of here at the end of each hour right here on 97.3 ESPN. A lot of feedback coming in on the YouTube and Facebook. Before we get to all the Eagles and Julio Jones stuff, which is about 90% of it, I did want to acknowledge one of the comments about the Sixers earlier. Steve watching on Facebook about Tobias Harris says Tobias Harris carried us in the first half. The refs were making terrible, soft, non-playoff calls on Joel Embiid. Even in the second half, when Joel was doing his thing, he remained very active, so clutch. Tobias Harris keeps up, man, we can go far. Listen, man, I'm with you, Steve, 100%. I think that when you look at what Tobias Harris has done and can do and will do for this team, I could argue he may be more important than Ben Simmons, at least offensively. I think Ben Simmons is probably the most important player defensively, and he's obviously your primary catalyst when in terms of setting up the offense, but you said the word properly. Tobias Harris clutch. He showed it multiple times this year, and when he goes out there and plays his game, teams can't stop him because of the fact that they got to pay attention to Embiid, and they can't forget about Simmons, and they can't forget about Green and Curry on the perimeter. So it gives Tobias more opportunities to do what he does, be active, be assertive, and play his game. So I think that there's a lot there to be said for that. And Kyle, I don't know if I agree with you on this, but Kyle watching on YouTube says 2021 NBA champs will be the Sixers. I don't know if I'm ready to go that far. I would love to see it personally. I mean, it's been what is it? 38 years since the Sixers won an NBA title. So I would love to see it. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but Kyle, I appreciate your optimism. More comments coming in here. Of course, you can chime in as well at 609-403-0973. Let's go 973 ESPN FM, the 973 ESPN mobile app. A lot of comments, though, of people trying to get their hands on Julio Jones. Obviously, again, as I said earlier, I'll repeat this one more time, and then we'll get to your guys' comments. I don't think the Eagles will get Julio just because of the fact that we have about 7-8 days until the trade will actually happen. The Falcons, if they traded Julio right now, are going to be in a worse cap held than they already are. $23 million of dead money is ridiculous. Whereas if they trade him after June 1st, it's a savings of $15.3 million. So it's going to take time for this thing to play out. So that's one thing going against the Eagles. The other thing is a team that's desperate will swoop in and make a better deal than almost anything the Eagles will within reason. I think some team will overpay to get him. Don't be surprised if a team basically looks at the DeAndre Hopkins offer and tries to double down on that kind of deal. So Alexis, I think it is, commenting on YouTube, has a trade deal for the Eagles, though, saying Avonte Maddox, Boston Scott, and second-round pick to Atlanta for Julio Jones. So I don't think that is going to do it at all. I think that there's two problems with that deal. Number one, you can't trade a third or fourth corner and a third or fourth running back with a second-round pick for arguably one of the 5-10 best receivers in the league. It's just, it doesn't equal. Okay, you got to give up a first round pick if you're going to include Boston Scott or Avonte Maddox in any deal. I think on a lesser level, the Falcons might have interest in Boston Scott, but Avonte Maddox, maybe they'd be interested, but those two guys, second round pick, is extremely low value. Think about, that's kind of highway robbery. I feel like the Falcons GM, Terry Fontenot, who comes from the Saints organization, he's a guy who seems to be a little more football savvy and football sound than being that guy. I don't think he would be that guy. I think that for the Eagles, you have to give up a first round pick because there's almost nobody on your roster that you would reasonably consider trading that would have enough value to acquire Julio Jones and include a second round pick. So it has to be a first round pick. So that's what I think of that deal. Now, I saw Jeff Bonampuki brought up Zach Ertz, Boston Scott, and maybe a second for Julio. I don't think you can trade Ertz and Boston Scott, and that'd be enough value either for two reasons. One, because the Falcons already have two tight ends. They drafted Kyle Pitts. They already have Hayden Hurst. And unless you're going to turn Pitts into a full-time wide receiver, which I don't see them doing, I think he's too much of a valuable weapon. Remember, Atlanta years ago had Tony Gonzalez on that field with guys like Roddy White and a young Julio Jones. I think that's kind of closer to what they want to do with Kyle Pitts. I think that you saw that Arthur Smith, he came from Tennessee where they had a guy like Delaney Walker. You see the impact that a guy like Darren Waller had last year. There's a lot of value of keeping Kyle Pitts at that tight end position. So I don't see Zach Ertz going to Atlanta. I still think that Zach Ertz goes to a team like Buffalo or Seattle or New Orleans, a team that doesn't have a high caliber, high tier tight end already on the roster where Zach Ertz can basically just kind of slide in and be that guy. I understand it's easy to throw Boston Scott into a deal right now because people are kind of looking at him like, he might be expendable because you drafted Gainwell, but I just don't think that's not good enough. I think you can't do a deal without a first round pick, and that's what I would tell anybody out there. If there's not a first round pick involved, the deal is not going to happen. And I think the Falcons can find a team be willing to give up a first round pick because, like I said, there will be a desperate team like the Packers trying to prove to Aaron Rodgers they're serious about winning games, or a team like Seattle who wants to prove to Russell Wilson. That's his name. I forgot his name for a minute. I had number 3 in my mind. I see him running around. I couldn't remember his name. That Russell Wilson. I can see a guy like Russell Wilson, or maybe a team like, for example, go to the AFC and think about it this way. What if a team like Pittsburgh, they have a plethora of receivers, and they say, we'll give you one of our young receivers, take on Julio's contract and $15.3 million guarantee, which is a lot of money to take on, and we'll go that way. So I think there's a lot of other scenarios that could happen. Now, Jeff Bonampuki brought up the idea of what Mike Gill brought up about the idea of Ertz for Hicks. I think that might still be a doable trade. 2 reasons. One, because the Cardinals could use another tight end. The Cardinals tight end situation is not great. Okay. So I could totally see them turning around and saying, Zach Ertz has value in our offense, which already has a ton of studs at the receiver position, from DeAndre Hopkins to AJ Green to Christian Kirk. But if you can get that tight end to kind of come in there and really expand the offense, because you look at their tight end situation, Jordan Thomas isn't what he used to be. They're taking a flyer on him. Daniels, Williams, they're better blocking tight ends than anything else. So I would assume that the Cardinals would be very interested in that. Whether you can get Jordan Hicks straight up for them, it's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if you can get it straight up for him. Cal Dupree says the Eagles should go all in for Stephon Gilmore. Let me tell you this. Of everybody I've heard on the rumor mill over the last month and a half, there's only one guy that I'd be willing to go all in for, and that's Stephon Gilmore. Because Stephon Gilmore isn't just one of the best players in the NFL, but he's also only 30 years old. He's not old. I mean, he's younger than Julio Jones, for goodness sake, by about 2-3 years. So I would do that. Stephon Gilmore, I'm in. Josh Hennig, Game Night. Have a great night. Catch you tomorrow.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff. Learn more, live better.
Mental health is just as important as our physical health and deserves as much attention. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Since the pandemic began, so many people have been experiencing mental health challenges. How do we know when someone might need help? We can educate ourselves by taking a one-day training called Mental Health First Aid. I took the Youth Mental Health First Aid program, and I think it's something we all should know. Just like a first aid course for physical conditions, this course teaches us skills to recognize and help people with mental health or substance abuse issues. It can literally save someone's life. An internationally recognized training, it is taught locally online through the Mental Health Association in Atlantic County. To learn more, visit mentalhealthfirstaid.org. I'm Robin Stoloff for Health Update.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff. Learn more, live better.